Today on Locked On Red Wings, Detroit gets their first win of the Todd McLellan era with a dominating performance over the Washington Capitals.
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley. Scotty's the host over at Locked On Tigers, as well as a freelance journalist for the Detroit News, while I am a color commentator for Oakland University ACHA D1 men's hockey. And Scotty, we got one game to talk about on this episode, and that's mainly because, to be honest with you guys, what do you want us to say about the game against the Toronto Maple Leafs? I mean, Todd McLellan said it in his introductory press conference, which is something we also can talk about probably briefly in this episode, because obviously everybody wants us to talk about, I'm sure, the Capitals game. But he got hired on. He literally did not land in Detroit and start practicing with the team until the Friday morning of the game. And he said, I'm not going to wave a magic wand. They're just going to go out there, play hockey. I'm going to see what I got. Well, he certainly saw what he had as the Red Wings lost that game. Was it 5-2 at the end? And there is nothing to take away, because there's nothing you can take away of any substance in a game where McLellan was just trying to see what he had with the team.
Yeah. I mean, we break down these performances and talk about individual players or like schemes that worked, or like coaching strategies and all that for to ignite a conversation about the big picture and like what the future is to hold, and that just doesn't exist with Friday's game. Like that, there is literally nothing to take out of that performance that is not the game plan that this team will have going forward. That is not the like nothing. The line combos, maybe, I guess, some of them, but for the most part, I mean, we saw that shuffled up on Sunday, right? We saw lines shuffled up. We saw the blue line shuffled up, which was very refreshing after Lalone kind of refused to for all these, the entire season, really. So I think that I completely agree with you in the sense that there really is next to nothing, if not nothing, to take away from Friday's game, other than just say they got absolutely, pumped. They got absolutely crushed, and that was kind of expected. It was a really much better roster, a much better team, and it was the first game of a new head coach in which he didn't even get a time to implement his scheme, because it was, he got hired like 12 hours before puck drop. So
I mean, and not for nothing, like the team, I thought they had heart in that game. I think they played hard. They outshot the Leafs. That's not for nothing. They outchanced the Leafs, but they were too sloppy. They played with energy, but they were far too sloppy against a much better hockey team, and they paid for it. Simon Edvinsson and Lucas Raymond scored, and that's it. That's my recap. Because in my opinion, today's game against the Washington Capitals was the first game of Todd McLellan's era as head coach. I know it's technically the second, but in my eyes, that's the first game, because they had a practice yesterday. They had a morning skate today where he could actually try, and all the video they could do, where he could actually break down and try to explain to the team how he wants them to play. And I thought it translated really well. There was one message, I thought, Scotty, that seemed to have come across very well in the first period, especially of that game against Washington, and that is play effing hockey. And that is my first thought in this hockey game, Scotty, is that they played effing hockey for the first time all season. I think McLellan even referenced it after the game against Toronto, that the team is so robotic and that he just wants them to, and he mentioned it in the practice where the quote comes from. It's like, you guys have done this your entire lives. Just go out there and play hockey. Do what you know what to do. And they did that. And so that's my first thought coming in after this 4-2 win over the Washington Capitals, is that they played effing hockey for the first time all season. And, just to parlay that's my difference maker too. It's Todd McLellan. I think that just almost an hour-long practice yesterday, he bag skated them at times. He was literally just trying to reset their mindset on how to play the game, just trying to change the way they think about it. And I thought it showed.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. When a coaching change happens, it is so important to now this is under the assumption that the previous coach's philosophy or game plan wasn't working, which in this case I think we can all agree is accurate. It was clearly not working. So whenever a coaching change like that happens, it is so important to really make it apparent and very obvious that that is not going to be the mindset going forward, and that is not going to be the game plan going forward. And you do kind of, I think the way you put it was reset their minds, and I think that is a really good way to word it, because I think it's accurate. This is a situation where he was basically just trying to get them to, as harsh as it sounds, forget everything that Lalone has been implementing. Like, truly, it was, just completely ditch that entire mindset, ditch all of the X's and O's that came from him. That didn't work. We're moving on. Just completely start from scratch, go out there and play some hockey. And I think you're right.
Yeah. And I think that, part of it, you get that new coach bump. I'm not sure. I don't want to read too much into this game, this first game under McLellan, and be like, that's it, the Red Wings are fixed. They were clearly playing with energy. They clearly looked excited to play hockey for the first time in a long time. And it did feel a little bit like they were unshackled. And in theory, I remember, I was a big supporter of Lalone's system. In theory, I thought it was excellent. Defense wins championships. If you can get a bunch of offensive-oriented players to commit to playing defense, then they'll be unstoppable, because that means you have a team full of two-way guys. But the problem is what that did, and by having them play so strictly to a system that didn't benefit them, is they weren't just bad at defense. They then became bad at offense because they never had the puck. In this game, they played in the first 20 minutes, especially where they came out flying. They allowed, I think, 4 or 5 shots on net at the end of the first period total. And that wasn't because they were playing superb defense. That was because they had the freaking puck.
Right.
That was the most creative I've seen this offense since literally the 6-game win streak last year. They were entering the zone with the puck and finding an open man almost immediately for a scoring chance.
Sentence there. They were entering the zone with the puck. That's a Christmas miracle.
And then they weren't just getting into the zone with the puck, but then they were driving the net. They were taking shots. They were getting shot quantity in the first. Players were going in. Alex DeBrincat, he's going to come up as I'll just mention him now as a notable performer rather than pushing that to segment 2. He was very noticeable in the first period, but not just him. A lot of players were doing it and going to the net, creating screens, getting the rebound. That's how Lucas Raymond scored his goal, was because they went to the net, forced the turnover, Charlie Lindgren sprawling, and Raymond buries it. Like, it was everything in the offensive zone they were doing is stuff that we hadn't seen all year. And I don't know if that was because they were demoralized or if because the system didn't call for it, or probably a little bit of both. But what they were doing to score those 4 goals in the first period was stuff we hadn't seen them do all year long. An aggressive forecheck, forcing turnovers, winning puck races to the puck, screening the goalie. I mean, that's how DeBrincat got his first goal. It was Sherratt's shot where he was crossing in front. That's how Patrick Kane got his goal, was Cat was crossing in front. Right. And then Alex DeBrincat crashed the net to get his second goal, off of, DeBrincat had a huge game net front. That was just such an exciting first period of hockey. And I know they didn't score another goal after that. And we'll talk about why, because I'm not oh my God, they only played one good period. I thought they played a really good complete game. Because when you're up 4-1, your game plan changes in periods 2 and 3. And I thought they still played pretty damn well despite that. So just not really a point to any of this other than I was just super impressed.
Yeah, completely agree. I think that this is... And I also agree with you on the sentiment that the rest of the game is not a cause for concern, as it is more so just a situational adjustment. But, we'll talk about that later. I think it was refreshing. I think that's the word that I would use. It was just refreshing. We saw some different combinations. We saw some different strategies. We saw the Wings possess the puck a little bit. It was just a refreshing change of pace from what they have been doing all season.
Yeah, and we were talking all year about, that first game they win and they dominate is going to hit. It's going to hit like no other. We didn't get that with Alone this year. We haven't gotten that since literally last year. The closest we had was the game against the Chicago Blackhawks, but that's a team you should dominate. This is a very good Washington Capitals team, albeit on the second half of a back-to-back, and I do think they looked fatigued because of that. They were in Toronto last night. But this was that dominating win we've been asking for, and it did hit really good. They're 4 games under 500 still, but I think it does lead you to be a little bit optimistic about the future of this team. Even if like you can't take too much away, you don't want to get too ahead of yourself. But it's like if this is how the team's gonna be under McLellan for the rest of this year, then like, yeah, they'll be fun to watch.
Yeah, agreed.
So we're gonna do a quick break. When we return, we'll talk about notable performers. In fact, I don't even know if you ever actually got to your first thought or difference maker. I think you were just responding to mine. So we'll get to yours in segment 2. We'll go with notable performers. So stay tuned to that and Locked On Red Wings. Did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions you forgot about or that you were paying for twice? That definitely happened to me. I had a few subscriptions that I didn't even realize I was still paying for. And Rocket Money made it so easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. God knows I need that. It brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon.
Locked On.
Segment 2, Locked On Red Wings podcast. You know, Scotty, I've made it my goal now to end every read in a unique enough way that it forces you to want to respond in some fashion. Where you feel the need to be like, that was odd. Now I need to say it back.
Well, I think that you're 1 for 1.
Well, we got NFL. We got
NFL.
Indeed. We used to have a
Well,
couple
Indeed
more,
is just that. Indeed you do. That's, you know.
That's true. Scotty, your difference maker, your first thought.
Yeah, I think for difference maker, I'm going to go with just the top line as a whole. We were kind of talking about it before we hit record here, and I didn't really know if I wanted to go DeBrincat or I really wanted to go Raymond, to be honest. I thought he looked incredible. He almost had 3 points. He ended with 2, but he should have there in the first period with all of the scoring opportunities just sailed the puck a little bit wide of the net and should have had probably another goal under his belt in this one. So I thought that really everybody in the top line was buzzing, and so that is going to be my difference maker on this one. I mean, Larkin was even if he wasn't racking up, like goals or a boatload of points or anything. I mean, he was still everywhere and helped set up that. Well, at least one goal. Obviously, got the assist on that, but was kind of all over the offensive zone in this one, which is nice to see. Like it's so frustrating to have to. I don't know if I want to use the word waste, but he is so fast and such an elite skater and can handle the puck really well and is a really effective zone enterer. Right, he's a weapon in zone entry, and we just haven't been able to use that for this entire season. And so having him actually, like, hey, the Wings are possessing the puck in the offensive zone and Dylan Larkin is still like a part of the play and out on the ice, and like he gets to actually do his, like circle and actually gets to kind of be a part of the rotation and whatnot, like is really a nice change of pace. And we saw that a lot in the first period. So yeah, I'm going to go with just the entire top line there. I think that is also something, at times this year it was okay. The top line we know is going to get opportunities, but the rest are where the struggles are. So it's kind of okay, like this was great, but we obviously want to see some production from the rest of the lineup card as well. But that certainly doesn't take away from how effective the top line was in this one.
Absolutely no. And to further your point, not only were they passing the test with the eye, which Joe Veleno on the top line. We got to talk about that.
Yeah.
It's kind of huge.
Yeah, I didn't even mention that. Yeah.
Yeah. Lucas Raymond led the team with a 74 Corsi for percentage at 5-on-5 in this game. Joe Veleno, a 63%, and Dylan Larkin with a 60% Corsi for percentage. Dylan Larkin is just kind of in a funk. He hasn't been able to score, but he was huge in driving the play for that line, as you would expect from your number one center and your captain. And he did a lot of the work for Lucas Raymond's goal, where he goes to the front of the net, forces a turnover. I don't know what Lindgren was doing on that play. I don't know either. Stacking the pads on the side, didn't even bother to try to get up. Raymond eventually got in there, also won the puck battle and buried it. They looked good, and Veleno looked good on that line too. And I mean, that's something we really got to talk about in general in this game, is like the major line shakeups. We saw Kopp return to center, although I think that's a holdover from Lalonde. He was between Cat and Kane, with Veleno up on the top line, which is how that line finished against Toronto, was with Veleno on the wing. And McLellan said, he's like, I liked what I saw out of Joe Veleno, so we're going to try him on the top line. And Joe Veleno looked really good. And like most notably, that line looked super good as a line and not just as individuals. They had a 76 Corsi for percentage. That's shots for versus shots against. They had 16 shot attempts for and only 5 shot attempts against that 5-on-5 as a line. That's very good, especially when you consider the fact that as a line, they had 0 offensive zone faceoffs. 0. All of their faceoffs came in the neutral zone or the defensive zone. And they dominated the Corsi for percentage. They started in their own zone, carried the puck out, and then got tons of shots on that. So I will, if Todd McLellan is the guy we've been waiting for to unlock Joe Veleno, I will be, because we were just talking a couple weeks ago, I was like, has he been pushed out of the depth chart? And here comes Todd McLellan. He's like, nah, top line winger.
Top line. We had the winger conversation earlier in the year, right?
Right.
And it was, you can't keep forcing him to play center. And if you want to get the most out of him, that might involve putting him, or might entail putting him at the wing. Now, I don't think we were referring to top line wing necessarily, but we'll take it, man. Like I said, that whole top line is my difference maker. They were, I thought, pretty phenomenal. I think Raymond looked exceptional. If I had to single one specific guy out, right, I think I would probably still side with him. But for as much of a shakeup as the top line ended up being, I thought they were pretty great.
Yeah, and Joe Veleno got a secondary assist on that Raymond goal. Raymond had an assist on the power play as well, so he had 2 points in this game. It was just an exceptional first line for sure, and I'm excited to see more Joe Veleno on that top line, assuming that McLellan liked enough that from what he saw, and I can't imagine he didn't, to continue putting him in that situation, see if he can continue to succeed and grow. Because it would also be nice, that would push more skill down the lineup if he turns into a guy who can be up there. Because he's got speed, we know that. He's got speed, he's got a decent shot, he's got decent hands. It was all about how can he maximize at the NHL level. Well, maybe this is it. Who knows? We'll see. But
you can hope.
The defensive pairs saw major shakeup too. We had Mort Seider and Ben Sherratt back together, and Simon Edmondson and Jeff Petrie, and it looked good. Like Jeff Petrie, I thought, left Alex Ovechkin wide open for his goal, but that's just the court-mandated Alex Ovechkin goal. He scores, you just shrug your shoulders. I mean, it's Alex Ovechkin. I thought overall the defensive pairs looked pretty solid in this hockey game. And these are pairs we've seen 1,000 times before.
Yeah, the Edmondson conversation is really interesting to me and has been the entire season. Obviously, we've broken down a lot over the course of the year, the concept of splitting the two of them up, Seider and Edmondson, that is, or keeping them together, and what's actually more beneficial for the team. Is it more beneficial to have one kind of super pair and just, honestly, at times a complete black hole with both of the bottom two pairs, or does it make more sense to try to divide them and maybe take away from the effectiveness of the top pair a little bit, but also making the second pair much more serviceable? And obviously in this game, the latter was the point of view, and it was pretty good. I think the interesting thing with Edmondson is the timing of when he moved around in the lineup card, right? Like at the beginning of the year, he started off as the second pair, and we were like, this is fine, but like not awesome. And then he moved up and played with Seider, and it was, oh my goodness, this pair's amazing. And then he didn't really ever go back down for a prolonged period of time. And it was like, okay, well, now that he is playing really well, I think it is kind of an interesting conversation to say, hey, like maybe if he can be the 1A and like handle the pair with whoever you throw next to him down in the second pair, then maybe it does make more sense now that he's established and confident and been playing really well to kind of divide and conquer a little bit. So I really think it's interesting. I'm really fascinated with what happens with the defensive pairs the rest of the season, if we're going to kind of run with this for a little bit or try some new stuff out. But I'm certainly not opposed to breaking them up. I think this really just all big picture goes back to like they need a lot more and much more talented blue line depth this offseason.
I'm going to be really curious to see what the quality of competition in this game looked like. I know Puck IQ doesn't tend to update until like 3 a.m. So we'll see tomorrow how they were utilized in terms of matchups, because it can be hard to watch on the fly and see exactly everything all that's going on. But Seider obviously had 26 minutes in this game, close to it, just shy of it, which is what you want. He's an every situation defenseman. So he had almost 5 minutes on the power play and over 3 minutes on the penalty kill, which is why he led the way by such a large margin. But if you look at the even strength time on the ice, it's pretty split evenly. And Moritz Seider, Jeff Petrie, Ben Sherratt, and Simon Edmondson all had between 18 and 20 minutes at even strength. And so I wonder if McLellan's going to attempt, by splitting up Edmondson and Seider, to even out the amount of 5-on-5 deployments that these two guys have, in a way to try and not just split up the talent, but then split up the workload as well, potentially giving Seider more opportunities to step up offensively, because that's something that we know he has in him, but he just hasn't had opportunity. And he's been very good. He's been a half-point per game defenseman despite everything. But we know he can be even better if he's put in situations to succeed. And we saw that with what we thought was Ben Sherratt's goal, DeBrincat's first goal. What he did on the blue line, where he danced along the blue line, escaping pressure from at least one defender, if I'm remembering correctly, if not two, to feed Ben Sherratt for the shot and deflection off DeBrincat. Like, that's the type of stuff that Moritz Seider is capable of when you give him offensive zone deployments. So I'm going to be watching with a keen eye to see if splitting Seider and Edmondson up leads to more even deployments and better success between those two pairs at 5-on-5. We've seen this before, and it didn't work earlier in the year, but that doesn't mean they can't succeed this time if they're utilized differently. And that's the big thing, is how will a new coaching staff utilize these players? Because the players aren't going to change, but how they're used may. And in this game, at least, they did.
Absolutely.
We're going to head to another quick break. When we return, we'll finish up notable performers, as well as talk about probably special teams before talking about anything that stood out to us from the press conferences on Friday. Stay tuned to Locked On Red Wings. Segment 3, Locked On Red Wings podcast. All right, Scotty, anyone else notable performer-wise that you really want to point out?
I don't think so. I mean, we already talked Cat, 2-goal performance, obviously good for him. Marco Kasper almost had a goal on a breakaway there. That was dang close. Good save.
Even with at the end of the Lalone tenure there, when the team looked demoralized, he never looked demoralized. He's an engine. He's skating hard all the time. He's putting himself in good positions. I don't know what it's going to take for him to break this point drought. I think he's on a 10-game point drought, because he looks good and just doesn't get rewarded. So we're just waiting on that. He looks very good. Yeah.
I thought Tyler Mott was kind of everywhere, low-key. Didn't get a ton of ice time. I think 11, 12 minutes, but was kind of everywhere when he was on the ice. I think that's pretty much everything. Just we could go through the entire roster. Like, this was a pretty sound and solid team performance, which is a very nice change of pace.
Yeah, did we even mention Showtime? 1,300 points, goal and assist.
1,300, baby.
Yeah, and you know what? Obviously, the goal and the assist go without saying, right? The goal was a nice goal. Again, a nice running screen by DeBrincat to screen Lindgren so Kane could bury that puck. A beautiful assist to find DeBrincat net front. That's standardized Patrick Kane stuff. That's not the impressive stuff. The impressive stuff was on a power play where I saw him back check twice.
2 times.
And that sounds sarcastic, but that reads to me like, oh, he's motivated again.
Twice,
he, and the second time, to be fair, was because he coughed the puck up. But
twice, Brian.
Twice.
All right.
And I don't mean this to sound snarky, but it was probably the hardest I've seen him skate all season.
Yeah,
And
I don't think that
was a good game by
though.
him.
Yeah,
Right.
I don't think that's incorrect. I don't think that's unfair to say.
I mean, he's now the second. He has been the second leading point scorer in the NHL amongst Americans all time, just behind Brett Hull. 1,300. I think he's like 90 something points behind Brett Hull at this point. So if he can stay healthy, he could probably knock that out. But he was very good in this game, I thought, offensively at least. +2 back checks.
Absolutely. +2 back checks, baby.
Special teams, 1 for 4 in the power play, 25%, which is respectable.
Great.
Penalty kill.
Miracle.
3 for 3.
Yeah, beautiful, man. I mean, that's going to be, to be honest with you, if there is one like very tangible statistic that people are going to look at and hold on to early in the McLellan era, it is going to be that. Like, it's going to be how the special teams adjust, because obviously he not only was it loaned, but like they McLellan is bringing in like one of his coaches as well, and then obviously we have Tanguay, who is never gonna go anywhere ever and is here forever.
Well, the power play keeps scoring. Why would he?
But you're right. But that is why I think people are going to look at the special teams a lot, because like Tanguay is still here, and so it's interesting to see if that truly is just like you are going to run the show with this, part of the ice, or if he is going to, I don't know, maybe make some minor adjustments, change the lineup a little bit. I'm not sure. But if there's a big spike in that, I think that it would go a long way in kind of the fan base's faith in the new coaching staff.
Yeah, absolutely. And the last thing on this game that I want to say is like in regards to, the game ended with the shots being pretty even. The expected goals might lean towards the Capitals by the end. I'm not sure. The expected goals on Natural Stat Trick right now are not loading properly, but that's whatever. When you're up 3 goals, you're up 4-1. Your mindset's going to change. And I don't think it went to full-on shutdown hockey at any point. They were still pushing when they could push, and they were still getting plenty of scoring opportunities. Right. Kasper, Rasmussen both had breakaways. They had tons of times backdoor. They had opportunities they were just fanning on. But they definitely were being a lot less aggressive. They were definitely being a lot more they were thinking a lot harder about when they would make those plays. So when you see these graphs and everything, you see the Washington Capitals charge back in the third period, that's simply because they're doing a third period push, and you're trying to secure your lead. And the Red Wings did. They allowed 1 goal in the third period. Dowd won a puck battle on a rebound. But other than that, you watch how that second and third period did. I don't think they got dominated. I thought they were just playing a different type of hockey to try and win. I don't love playing, pure defense hockey with protect the lead hockey is what they call it. I don't love playing protect the lead hockey, but it is reality and what happens in the NHL, and they were able to protect the lead, and they're fine. So really, that protect the lead, the last 2 periods were a result of a dominating first.
Agreed.
So, presser, we got the press conference from Friday. I thought the most interesting stuff was obviously McLellan and Yzerman. When it comes to players are never going to give you really anything good, to be honest, because they're so trained by the media to not really say anything interesting. And that's not a shot. That's just good media training. But I'm sorry, Larkin, Sider, and Kane, I'm falling asleep trying to listen to them and get cuts because they don't want to give you anything. That's by design. They'd probably prefer if I fell asleep listening to them talk. So we got Yzerman, we got McLellan. Was there anything that you wanted to lead with in terms of their press conferences?
So I didn't take a whole lot from really anybody, certainly not the players. I mean, I thought McLellan said everything he should have. He was pretty blunt, which I think we appreciate, but Newsy was blunt too. Who really cares? I think really the biggest thing that I took out of it, if anything, was the Yzerman part pretty comfortably, because he, I don't know, got a little more big picture with everything, got asked a few more big picture questions that weren't strictly just about the coaching hire and kind of the direction of the team and whatnot. So I think that was pretty easily the most interesting part. The rest was kind of coach speak and player speak, and even Yzerman didn't give us it was a bone. I'm not sure he gave us a meal, but it was at least something.
I would actually argue Yzerman actually gave us real answers for the first time in his entire tenure when he was asked questions. Because again, by design, he doesn't share anything. But they asked him, Scotty.
He's really good at saying a lot and like talking a lot and not saying much. Kind of thing.
But I feel like he said things this time. Like they asked him specifically, like, what were your expectations going into the season? He said expectations going into the season were to compete for a wild card. That was the first time that I can remember in his time in Detroit that he has shared explicitly what his expectations were of a team going in.
And that they were, you know, not like we need to make the playoffs, but like, you know, that's a compete for a playoff spot. That's the first time I think we've been able to say that going into a Red Wings season in, you know, over half a decade. So, and
then like they asked him about why he made that decision. And he basically said like over the last, if I recall correctly, it was like he talked about the energy level in particular. It's like the energy level just wasn't there. Yeah. And so he had to make a decision. So I really liked the fact that he mentioned the expectations because it finally confirms what we had all been hoping was that he was finally trying to get this. Because he every time he's asked, he always says stuff like, oh, well, when we get there, we'll get there. Like, that's what he says. He's like, when we're in the playoffs, we'll talk about it. He doesn't ever say we're going to go shoot for the playoffs. So, obviously, at this point, the chances of them making the playoffs are very slim. But to know that his mindset now has shifted to being a playoff hockey team means that this team it's reassuring, is attempting to make the next step. Right. Whether or not it does, you know, that's the quality of the moves, and we can scrutinize that all day. That's a whole different episode, and we've done episodes about scrutinizing the moves he's made. But they also asked him about, you know, expediting the process, so to speak. And he said, I remember him mentioning things along the lines of like, you know, guys like McDavid, if you can get them, they're great. But those guys don't ever hit the free agent market, and getting them in draft is once in a lifetime. Right. So he mentioned targeting trades to expedite the process. And he used the word expedite the process. So I'm not saying that Steve Yzerman said that he's going to make a big blockbuster trade, but he is looking at trades as a way to make this team a contender faster. And you couple that with Elliot Friedman reporting that the Red Wings and the Sabres have been in contact the last couple of weeks, you know, going back and forth. You know, maybe there's something to that. It's all speculation, but I don't know who we'd want from it. The thing about the Sabres, like,
what are you talking about?
Yeah, right. Or Dylan Cousins would be cool, but like you trade with the Sabres, you're trading a mid team, trading with another mid team in the same division, and it's like you're hoping that changing the location will make those team players spark. And there's good. Cousins is a great player. Tage Thompson is a great player, and they're performing fine. I just like who would we have to give up and stuff like that. But I took those two quotes specifically, talking about expediting, using a trade to expedite the process, and the expectations to be the playoffs, be the most honest I've ever heard Yzerman be.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's fair. I still think that there's a lot of which isn't anything against Yzerman. It's just kind of the way the business works. I still think there was a lot of you know, a lot of speaking in general rather than being specific, but I do agree that specific comment was specific. Goodness, I did not mean to say the word specific like 4 times in a sentence there, but that is I think that is fair. It's just the like the rest of the way is still, you know, like what's the expectation the rest of the year? I'm hoping that's the same expectation going into then this upcoming fall, this next fall, but you know, that's a ways away. So,
and as far as what McLellan talked about, Scotty, the biggest thing that he said, and this couples nicely with him on the ice on Sunday or Saturday, was when he said that being a coach isn't about bringing a system in a suitcase and expecting the players to play to that, but rather to find a system that fits the players. And I think a lot of Red Wings fans, that's music to their ears, because the biggest complaint of the Derek Lalonde era was that Lalonde was trying to get the team to play a system that did not suit
round
them.
Hole.
Again, yeah. And again, like I'll call myself out. This was a guy I thought Lalonde's system in theory was going to work wonders in a few years. But, you know, that's when you're thinking about the players as game pieces rather than as human beings. And I thought that quote by McLellan is going to go a long way, and it did in this game at least. New coach bump. We'll see in 20 games how this team is performing. But letting the players play, right? Play effing hockey. You've done it your whole life, and implementing a system that benefits a group of small, fast-scoring forwards is going to mean they're going to win a lot more hockey games. Will they be Stanley Cup contender? Probably not. But they'll be winning hockey games, and they'll be fun to watch again. And that's the step back towards the winning culture that this team needs.
Yeah, agreed. We'll take that.
So that and his just overall attitude, very candid, I thought. A lot less coach speak. Derek Malone gave us a ton of coach speak. Just sounded like a human being, which was great. So, yeah. They're good press conferences.
Yeah. I mean, we're grading press conferences. Like, people don't care. Show me on the ice.
Well, they did. Won 4-2 against the Washington Capitals. The first win of the McLellan era. Snapped the 4-game losing streak. And they play again on, Tuesday now?
Tuesday against Pittsburgh.
Yeah, a New Year's Eve game against the Pittsburgh Penguins. So stay tuned for that. We'll recap that game when it happens tomorrow. We'll think of something to talk about. Who knows yet? So stay tuned for whatever that wild card is. Same time. Scotty.
We ball.
Same time, same place. It's your team every day.
Every day.